Okay, here we are. Second episode with now my wife. Previously on episode 200, we did our first ever episode together, and that was when we were fiancés and yet to be married. So today we're going to do an episode just coming up to 6 months into our marriage, and we're just going to skirt around different topics, explore a couple of questions we've sort of been thinking about, and just see where the conversation takes us. So I just thought I'd kick it off with asking, what have you learned about marriage in the first 6 months of tying the knot?
Well, interesting question. So after you get married, what I tend to find is, and I'm guilty for this as well, is when you meet people, so when we go to events or wherever it is, the first thing that everyone says is, so how's married life? And I'm always like, oh, the same? Like, it's always the same. So when you're asking about what married life has been like for the first 6 months of what I've learned was the question, I'd probably say it's been very similar to what it was like before. Yeah. There's not really been many changes with us, with our dynamic, with our routines. And I guess we're lucky in that sense that we were able to move in together before marriage. So I feel like we got used to each other. We had that time to get used to each other. So when people do ask me that question, anything related to what's changed or, how is it? And I'm just like, it's the same. Is it supposed to be different? But there is an inner feeling, I guess, that's just elevated a little bit. So as in our relationship, I feel has elevated a little bit. But outside of that, it's pretty much just been all systems go. I think I was saying to someone this morning that as soon as we got back, we were just straight into like, oh, okay, back into routine. Let's go to the gym. And I remember we went to the gym literally the day after we got married. It was just very much back into it. So
it's the biggest small talk question you get asked. It's like, oh yeah, so how's married life? What's different? What's new? But I think it's just because, especially in our culture, those who ask, the people that are asking are typically the ones in our culture, because for them, for most people in sort of a South Asian culture, when they get married, it's the first time you live together. So from that perspective, it's a massive dynamic shift. Whereas for us, I think it's just a difference in, there's definitely an internal shift that happens. And then like more sort of surface level is like when you start saying, oh yeah, my wife. Yeah. Or like, you're used to saying girlfriend or fiance, and now you're suddenly saying wife. That's probably definitely another shift that you have to almost like hesitate. Oh, what do I say now?
Yeah. It's really interesting you say that, because I still feel that now, and it's been 6 months. I'm like, this is my husband, and it's really weird because I feel like old. The perception of being married, it feels like, oh my god, I'm married. It's really strange, and that took me some getting used to, along with Mrs. Vaghela.
Yeah.
It's only recently I've introduced myself as I'm Chandni Vaghela instead of Chandni Chapter. So that took a bit of getting used to as well.
Yeah, it took about 5 months.
Okay. Yeah, it did. It was a bit of a shift. But is there anything that you've learned in the first 6 months?
No, I think it's one of the key things. I think we speak about this a lot. I think we do it quite well, but we can maybe recap on what we discussed last time. But I think it's very easy. I think it can be very easy to take your marriage for granted. Not that we have at all, but I think I can see why people do, and potentially just see it as something that will automatically improve and automatically be nurtured without putting any effort into it. I think it does require like specific effort to carve out the time to work on it. And that doesn't mean working on it if it's going wrong, but working on it even if it's going well. And I think that needs to be very strategic in your week. Otherwise you can fall by the wayside, and the next thing you know, you haven't really spoken to each other for another month. Yeah. And not that we've had that issue, but I'm very conscious of that myself. And I even said it to you the other day. I was like, yeah, and I'm also factoring in time with you. Yeah. And you're like, why do you need to factor that in? I'm like, yeah, because if we don't do that, if I don't factor that in, then I won't do it. And in my mind, if it doesn't get blocked out in the diary, it's not gonna happen, is it? That's one of the things. But also internally, if you don't have that energetic shift or like focus point that you're gonna work on it, then I think it's easy to just let it slide. And we hear of so many couples. Well, I hear of so many couples just through RNT who are in relationships where they don't speak to their partners, or they can't communicate with their partners, or there's so many issues going on, they're going through divorce or whatever the issue is, it stems down to communication, and it stems down to just not putting time and effort. And I know people might be listening to this who might be married for a while, ages, and say, oh yeah, you guys are just in the honeymoon phase, right? But we've also been living together for 2 years. We've been together for nearly 4, so it's still like quite early in the grand scheme of things. But I think if you consider the fact we've been living for 2 years, I think we're past the honeymoon phase in that, right? If that's what people are perceiving on that bit. I think one thing I've learned is just that it needs just as much attention as your business, or just as much attention as your health.
A relationship is like a business, guys. You've heard it here.
Wait, no, that's it. Like, yeah, it does though, right? Because otherwise you can just end up people like thinking like who basically people like me who just want to go who have all these like business goals and completely consumed by the business. It's very easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'll work on that next week. I'll do that next week. Or yeah, I'll do date night next week. We'll have a chat next week, right? But I think one thing I've we did a more or less keep exercise on the weekend on New Year's Eve. Like, if anyone listening, it's basically you list like what things you want to keep doing, what things you want to do more of, and what things you want to do less of. And one of the things I said keep was the morning walk we do together.
Yes.
It's not like it's anything revolutionary. It's just a 25 to 30 minute time to just catch up and just to reset every morning. That just gives us that guaranteed time that we're going to be together. And similarly, we do the breakfast together as well, which is at 12, but I don't know if it's called breakfast, but we have that first meal together, and then we try and do the evening as well. But those first 2 anchor points are really key. But I think we also, because we're lucky to have our own schedules, but also even when we just started working from home, when you start working from home, we're very deliberate about those times in the day. So you don't book anything 12, 12:30, and there's a few occasions. One day a week usually I can't do it, but
maybe 2.
Yeah, one day a week is always because of a podcast, so you can blame Ed and Ivan for that.
No blame.
But outside of that, it's that's like locked in the diary. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is that I've just learned that it's got to be really deliberate, and it's got to be something you nurture just as much as your business, and also your health. It's the 3 pillars of life, isn't it? It's health, relationships, and business. So those are the 3 things that are most important. It's just about giving equal attention to all, without letting one of them neglect.
And when we were talking about our goals, I think on New Year's Eve and just for the year, one of the things that Akash mentioned was weekly date night. Yeah. This is something that we started last year, and I feel like it was really nice that was even considered, because what tends to happen is in the evenings, they all just become a blur, and it's almost like we see each other, we speak, we have dinner, everything's fine in the evenings, but to actually carve out some time for a weekly date night, it's quite nice. And it doesn't need to be anything extravagant. It could just be watching a movie, it could be going out for a walk, it could be anything, but it's just something that's a little different to every other evening. So that was really nice to hear that was included in your goals.
Yeah, because we started doing it last year, and then I was like thinking, then this is me reflecting. I was like, so now that I'm dieting for this first quarter of the year, I don't want every date night to be a restaurant. There's nothing wrong with having a food related date, but it can become like it's the same. It just becomes one of the things where you're just trying all the different restaurants in the city. Yeah. And as fun as that is, I think there's also an element of like, all right, well, we've got a challenge of we might have a few meals out, but we don't want every week to turn up to a new restaurant. So that just adds another challenge in itself, right? Yeah. Which probably trying to like navigate around.
Well, what we've been doing recently is, so I'm a big games fan, so we've been playing games in the evening, which has been really, really fun for me. And I think you got into it as well, because you actually asked, what game can we buy to play? And I was like, oh my god, this is my dream. It was really nice. But one of the things that you mentioned was communication in a relationship, or where people may go wrong with, or things may break down. And through working with my own clients, some of the women that I've worked with, I see that the communication thing can really be a blocker, because with the communication, if there's a lack of it, or if you're close, it's because you're potentially afraid to really share what's going on inside. Because if you do share what's going on inside, the other person, there may be firstly a conflict, or secondly, worse, things may go downhill. It's almost recognizing or acknowledging that something isn't quite right. And people are afraid of that. And I completely get it, because I don't like conflict and I do things to avoid conflict. But the one thing we've always done is have open communication. And it comes back down to the check-in. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but we've talked about it before. But one of the key things about that is the room for improvement. Yeah. And that section for me, honestly, is a game changer. It's so refreshing that you take on the feedback which I give you and vice versa, but you don't just hear it or moan about it, get defensive of it. You actually listen and you take it in. And one of my cousins said that the other day. She was like, it's so nice that you both actually listen to each other and you don't just get all defensive about it, and you actually take action on the things to try and improve us, right? It's all for us at the end of the day. So I feel that fear has kind of gone from us. We're able to tell each other exactly how it is, exactly what's going on. And I can completely understand how it can be daunting for some people to actually openly talk like that, especially in a relationship, because you probably think you're going to push the partner away, you're going to, I don't know, it ends in a breakup, worse, divorce, like, you know, whatever it is. But that's not always the case. And then it just goes to show you maybe with the wrong type of person. So we work well together in that way. I think it's good. I mean, touch wood, for now it's been really, really good. Yeah,
that's definitely one of the things I learned from my parents, is the communication factor. I think on episode 100, it said to me the key to long-term relationships is open communication. And when I asked them what they call it, like, they journal out on each other. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they said they still do it to this day.
They're great.
Yeah.
They are great at it. And not only that, their communication stems out to us. So I'm going to go into the mother-in-law topic. It's really funny because me and mum talk about it. Akash's mum, my mum, we talk about it. And when we're speaking, she always talks about, you know, is there anything that I can do? Like, she openly talks to me around, right, is there room for improvement for me? And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, it's really refreshing to have that. They are a dream, firstly, dream parents-in-law.
You don't just say it just because you're on the podcast.
Oh no, I'm not. I say that to my family and friends as well. I'm just like, they're dream. Because I know, again, women struggle with, or can struggle with parents-in-law. I've had all sorts, and I'm just very grateful that I'm not in that position. But the communication is what I'm getting at, stems out from them. Like, they're actually talking to me around, you know, getting interested in what I'm doing, talking to me around me, understanding me, as well as getting feedback. Because I'm just like, oh wow, this is really nice to see that open communication with all of you guys as well. So yeah.
Well, asking for feedback is one of the hardest things. It's something you can do on a very surface level, but asking for brutal feedback is probably one of the best things you can do to improve as a person.
Absolutely.
That's something I'm always asking for you, and sometimes I just tell you, just give it to me, instead of like skirting around the topic.
Not skirting. So sometimes I try and coach
that is like, you try and coach me through it, and like say, oh, you're gonna figure it out yourself, and then coach me and nudge me. I'm just like, just tell me why it is. Just tell me what I'm not seeing that I need to be seeing.
Yeah.
And then it's usually like some hard truth or like something I don't want to. I'm like purposely not trying to see. But yeah, that's what I think. That's another thing I've learned, is that you want to lean into that quite a lot, because your wife or your partner, or your spouse, or whoever's listening, whatever it is for you, is probably going to see things that you can't see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're so single-minded on one hour, you're just a very single-minded person, then you can kind of, you put the blinders up so much that you forget sort of what's going on in your peripheral vision. So yeah, asking for that direct feedback is key. And that's in all relationships, like with your close friends, your partners, but I think it's something that we keep like enforcing.
Yeah, and the thing is, through our check-ins, but just to touch on the feedback, I also used to do that a lot at work as well. And I'd say for anyone listening, it's good to get feedback from all areas of your life as well, like not just from relationships. So if you're in a work environment, a business setting, working with clients, whatever it is, get feedback, and that's the way you're going to continuously improve on yourself.
Also understanding who the people to get right feedback from. You don't literally asking feedback from everyone, because most people's feedback is probably not going to be worth taking on board. It's understanding like who are the few people in your life that are worth taking feedback from, and then going all in on that. Otherwise, you'll get confused, and B, you'll probably get a lot of sort of subtle hate feedback That makes sense? You know, you get a lot of that sort of stuff where people are like giving you feedback, you're like, well, I don't know if that actually makes sense. And it actually doesn't make sense. So I think, yeah, getting feedback, but also being specific and strategic with who the feedback comes from. So shifting gears, what have you learned most about me in the first 6 months, if anything different? Any shockers? Yeah, those people, I get married and 3 months in, it's like everything comes out. Any shockers or?
No, I think it goes back to, because we've been living together prior to getting married, it's really helped us. So I feel like the key shockers were when I say shockers, they're not even shockers. I think when we moved in together, I was firstly strangely surprised by how clean you were. Based on what mum and dad were saying. They were just like, oh God, like you're moving in together. I was thinking, oh no, he's gonna be a big mess. But no, nothing really. I think it's just general housekeeping stuff. Outside of that, there's no real habits. I think we work well together, we gel well together. We've got this very similar routine in terms of waking up at the same time, bed at the same time.
Well, admin is definitely not my strong point, so that's probably definitely.
Are you talking about house, like literally looking after the flat?
Yeah, but it all comes under admin for me.
Okay, that's very true. So yeah, but again, I think.
What were you gonna say, Jamaica?
No.
Oh, right.
What were you gonna say about Jamaica?
I think you were gonna refer to the passport example.
Oh no. Okay, that's a good example. You can tell that story in a minute, but no, not the passport example. It's just general, I guess. Like I was gonna say, bills and mortgage and everything is covered by me. As in, like, handled by me, should I say?
Yeah.
So,
Not covered.
Yeah, not covered. Handled by me.
Yeah.
But and just general stuff like fixing stuff. But I think that's also more because I've lived on my own for a very long time, so I'm just used to fixing the light bulb. I feel like you don't notice things.
Yeah,
like
I think it's just more like, I think it's also a personality thing. I know because I know a lot of people in similar boat who have similar personalities who would just never notice these things.
Yeah.
Like they would never notice the lights off or there's a hole in their sock like there is one right now.
I have a question. I have a question for you. Do you know that in the bathroom right now that one of the light bulbs is
Yeah, but it's one of those things.
You do know that,
I know
right?
it's off. I'm like, as long as I can see what's going on in there, I don't really care. And if I was living on my own, I probably wouldn't even change that law.
Oh, this is gonna happen on the weekend. I literally walked into the bathroom and it's normally super bright, and I walked in and I was like, oh God, why is it so dark in here? I looked up and I was like, oh, one of the bulbs is gone.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I think I asked you, and you were just like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, whoa, it was such a big difference for me walking in. So that's something that's on my list of things.
Well, I think there's definitely like, you get the different personality types. You get the steel. There's so many different like personality testing, whatever. But like the type who have like their head in the clouds, sort of, they're just like, like they like being in the cave, head in the clouds, like creatives, or there's no attention to detail. It's definitely me, and I know people that are similar, who never notice these things, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, it's just, that's why you need people in your life who can patch those areas up.
Who can build bookshelves and smart the light bulbs and fix things and clean. And
Yeah, exactly. But it's like the Jamaica example, for example, the perfect one. It's like, it's when we go on honeymoon, and then we get to the night before. This is like the perfect example of like, when I sent it to a few of my friends, they were just like,
oh gosh.
They were like, it's admin.
Oh my God.
It's admin. Like, we're in this room, where we're filming this now, I was in this room just finishing up some work, and then I just hear like Akash. And I was like, oh God, I never hear that. Normally never hear that being said. And then I come in the room, it's like, your passport's expired. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what can we do about it? Like, there's nothing, for me, there's nothing we can do about it. So, yeah, the solution is probably, you can either go yourself, or like, we'll see if we can get a passport emergency. And luckily we got an emergency passport, and I missed the first 3 days of the trip. But I got there on Wednesday, and then I was known as the guy who left his wife.
I'd made all my friends
stranded in the Caribbean.
Literally, for the first 3 days, I'd made all my friends on the island with all these couples. They were inviting me to hang out with them, and I was like, he is coming. I actually looked like a single person on a couple's resort. But the one thing actually from that story, I'd say, we were talking about learnings from our marriage. I think this is, I don't know if it's linked to marriage, but it's more linked to you. One of the things that I've learned through being around you is this whole kind of mindfulness piece. Because when I talk about this, about me responding or me being triggered, so the passport example, for me, I was like, oh my God, the passport's expired, we can't go, thought about this trip, we planned it, and we're going to lose the money, we're going to not be able to go. I was just, thinking I'm not going to be able to see. All these things went through my head, and he was so calm. Sat right next to me, calm. Okay, well, what can we do? I was like, oh, okay. And
yeah,
we
then
just
I
went
spent
into
4 hours
problem
on
solving.
4 hours on phone with Virgin the next day.
Yeah, that was the next day. But then we just problem solved. I think within half an hour we had a solution. He gets his passport, I go, he comes later, job done. And I was like, oh, why was I even panicking for? So, yeah.
Oh, someone said to me, like, if it's not criminal or it's not terminal, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I like that.
So I think it's like, I just try and adopt that mindset as much as I can.
I like
and it
that.
just kind of keeps you in the zone with these, when these sorts of things happen, most people are creating like a massive palaver.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you were, but you hear of these people like, oh, they're throwing their toys out the pram.
Yeah.
But it's just like, well, what difference is it going to make? Just miss 3 days of the trip, pay a bit of extra money. That's it, really. And obviously, when I got to the airport in Jamaica, it's the airport, and I'm like signing in for my bus to get transferred. And then the lady's like, looks at my name, then looks up at me, then looks down again and goes, "You the man that left their wife at the airport alone." I'm like, how do these people know? Like, she wasn't even in the resort, and she knew. I was like, how'd you know that? She's like, I remember you from Sunday. I remember your wife from Sunday.
I made an impression.
I was like, wow. No, but yeah, that's just the point. The moral of the story is don't leave me with admin.
Yeah.
And stay cool. Okay, we're gonna finish up with a quick fire round. So Chandni's got 5 questions that she's gonna fire at me. Maybe more. I'm not sure.
There's 5 on here. I've actually Googled some. I had some in my mind anyway, so some of them overlap, so we can work on that.
Alright, go for it.
Okay. Number 1, what is your favourite thing about being married?
Having an official partner to share the journey with.
Oh, I like that.
I
That's
know.
nice. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, cool. When you were younger, what did you think marriage would look like?
Good question. To be honest, I don't think it's too far off what we have now. Mainly because I think I was just really fortunate and lucky to grow up with my parents who have an amazing marriage. So because of that, my perception of marriage has always been good. I think, if anything, my perception is probably higher than most people's expectations are. So like, that probably forced me to make sure that the person I marry is the right person. Because I think anything less would have not been, and for me it's the most stable thing in my life. It would have not been, it wouldn't have met the expectations I had in my head from a young age. So I think because I was so fortunate to have a good example being Seb, I'd say we've definitely met that expectation.
Well, that's really nice.
So shout out to my parents.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, number 3. What was your favourite part of our wedding day?
The walking down the aisle.
I was gonna say the same. Why was that the favourite part for you?
I don't know, I just felt like going into the marriage, going into the wedding, I had no like, I wasn't really like, people are like really excited or stressed about their wedding, right? Most people are stressed about their wedding. First, I didn't have no stress going into the wedding. And then other people are like really pumped to get married, probably because it's going to be a significant change in their life. So I was kind of like nonchalant about the whole thing until probably a few days before. Then I was like, I'm actually quite excited now. And then the day itself was definitely way beyond what I expected. I think I saw it as quite in my head, I thought it was quite a functional exercise. I thought you're just going to walk down the aisle, say a couple things, change a couple rings, and that's it. But I didn't quite anticipate the energy in the room was insane. I think like we had a small wedding, so only 8 people were in the room. It was very intimate. The only people who were there were the only ones who wanted to be there. So it was very intimate. It was very, just the energy was good. And I just felt like I was in the void. That's the way I describe it to someone. It was like you just feel like you're completely present in the moment.
Wow. And funnily enough, you say that because that's probably my favourite moment as well. I remember coming in, walking down the aisle. and looking to the left-hand side of the room where all my guests were sitting and everyone was just in tears. And then I remember looking to the right and being like,
everyone was crying.
Everyone was crying. And then that made me cry. I was like, everyone's crying, oh my God. And then I started tearing up. And then I remember looking at you, and one of my uncles said this, he was like, you were just fixated on each other.
Yeah.
And I just looked at you and I was like, oh my God. And then, I just remember greeting you and I was like, oh my God. And I think people were clapping. Like when I initially hugged, I was like, feels so nice. There was just a really good energy in the room, a really good vibe. A lot of love. So that was definitely one of my favorite parts. I have so many good memories from that day. Amazing memories.
What's next?
Number 4, what is your favorite thing I do for you?
Probably keep the house in order.
I had a feeling it would be that one. Okay, fine.
Also, I probably have no clothes, no clean clothes. And I'm probably living in a sty.
Okay, keeping things in check. I like that. And how do you show me that you love me?
Where do you pick these questions? What are you typing in?
I just typed in quick fire marriage questions.
Marriage questions?
Marriage questions for your husband.
Okay. I'd say I like to think carving out that time in the day.
I think that's a great one.
So the walk and the breakfast.
I like that. And I have one more just for my own personal one. What's the best meal that I cook? I really like cooking, guys.
I'd say it's probably a toss up. I think the spag bowl is definitely there. It's probably one of the best. It's a very good spag bowl. Although I have to see the vegan at times. Oh, I've actually tried it.
We've been having that for a while.
No, to be honest, that was really good as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best one.
Good.
Any others?
Oh no, I think that was everything.
Alright, well that's a wrap.